on Sugar Spun Run, we'll be making shepherd's pie. Hey Sugar Spun bakers, Sam here with another carefully tested, well-researched, and perfected recipe. Today we are making something savory. This is actually going to be my dinner tonight. We are making my favorite shepherd's pie. Now to save myself a couple dishes, I like to grab myself a 10-inch oven-safe skillet, and I'm going to cook my beef in this, put the potatoes on top, and it's going to go in the oven, all in this dish. If you don't have an oven-safe skillet like this, you can always transfer the meat to a casserole dish or a large pie plate. That would work as well. We're going to start on the stove top, but today's recipe is going to finish over in the oven, so you'll want to get your oven preheating to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Now for our skillet, you're going to want to turn your heat just a notch above medium, and to this skillet, where's my butter, we're going to add a tablespoon of butter. It's not a huge amount of butter, so salted or unsalted is going to be fine. I'm using unsalted today. I'm also going to add a tablespoon of olive oil. Now once my butter is melted and my pan is nice and hot, I'm going to add my onion. This is one medium chopped yellow onion. It's about a cup of onion, maybe a cup and a half. I'm just going to add this to my pan. And we are also going to be using carrots in today's recipe. This is 3 carrots that I have peeled. Peeling isn't necessary, but it does make the orange color pop a little bit better, so if you care about that sort of thing, you can peel them. And it makes about a cup and a half of carrots. As you can see, I didn't just cut them into coins, I sort of diced them a bit. Add these. Cutting them that small helps them to cook a little bit more evenly with the onions, and it just fits them on your fork a little bit better too. Lets you get a nice forkful of all of the ingredients that make shepherd's pie so great. Now I'm just going to cook this, stirring it pretty frequently until both the onion and the carrots have softened. Usually takes about 5 minutes. Now I'm going to be making my meat layer first, and then I'm going to move on to my potatoes. But if you have multiple burners, like most people do, you can start your potatoes around the same time. Okay, once our veggies are softened, we're going to add our garlic, which is going to add a ton of flavor. This is a tablespoon of minced garlic. We'll add this in, and I'm just going to stir this just until the garlic is fragrant. That's about 30 seconds of cooking the garlic. It doesn't take long. All right, this smells pretty good, so now we can add our meat. So traditionally, shepherd's pie is made with ground lamb. If you can find lamb, that's fantastic. You'll need 1 pound of ground lamb. If you can't find it, which I can't really find it around here, you'll want to use ground beef instead.
Oh, Mommy.
I know, he's upset we don't have lamb. So this is a pound. Careful, don't get too close. This is a pound of ground beef. Don't yell at me. You can substitute lamb, use lamb or beef, whichever you can find. So we're going to cook this beef or lamb until it's browned, and I'm going to crumble it while I cook it. I'm going to switch over to a spatula right here. Make it a little bit easier. So once our meat is about 80% cooked, you can drain the meat if you need to. I'm using 93% ground beef. I usually don't need to. So I'm mostly cooked. I'm going to add 1.5 tablespoons of tomato paste. Put that in there. And 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, 3/4 teaspoon of table salt, 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried thyme, and 1/2 teaspoon of dried parsley. I'm going to stir these in. This is going to help the flavors really develop here. The tomato paste is going to caramelize, and the beef is going to finish cooking in all of these spices, which is going to help give it a really nice flavor. Now, something else that I like to do here sometimes is I'll add a pinch of brown sugar, like just a teaspoon, maybe a teaspoon and a half. It's not necessary, but it gives the dish a little depth of flavor that you can do, but I know not everyone likes to add sugar to their meal. I'm going to be feeding this to my kids, and they get enough sugar, so I'm just skipping it today. So this just needs to cook about another 30-60 seconds, and once everything's nicely combined and my beef is cooked through, I'm going to add my flour, which helps thicken this dish a little bit and gives us a nice gravy. This is 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. I'm just going to sprinkle it over top, and I'm going to cook while stirring until that's completely worked in and we can't see the flour anymore. It's going to take about 60 seconds to cook it because I also want to get that flour lightly toasted, which again helps with the ultimate end flavor of it. The ultimate end result flavor. And the skillet is a little bit tight, but as you can see, I'm really committed to not doing any more dishes than I have to, so we're going to make it work. You will notice that you're accumulating some browning on the bottom of your pan. Don't worry about that. We're going to deglaze it shortly with some beef broth, which is going to also add to the flavor of the dish. So once I'm satisfied that my flour is nicely worked in, I'm going to add my broth. We'll be using 1 cup of beef broth today, and we're going to slowly add this while stirring and scraping the bottom of the pan, because again, we want to get all of those brown bits on the bottom of the pan worked into the meat, for that flavor. And it's hard to pour and scrape and stir at the same time, so I'm just gradually adding the broth. I'm gonna add the rest of it now that the bottom of my pan is deglazed. And I'm also going to add 2.5 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. And again, I'm feeding this dish to my kids, so sometimes I'll substitute coconut aminos for the Worcestershire. Either one will work really well here. Try to sneak in a slightly more nutritious option whenever I can. So I'm going to stir this and let it simmer a little bit until the sauce is thickened. I want it to be a little bit more like a gravy than like a broth. So I'm pretty happy with how this is looking now. So I'm going to add my last ingredient, which is peas. We're adding 1/2 cup of frozen peas. I did not thaw them first, so you don't need to. Let's stir these in. Turn my stovetop off now. Just gonna make sure this is a nice even layer. And now I'm just going to let this sit off of the heat while I prepare the mashed potatoes. All right, now let's prepare our potatoes. I have a large pot here with some cool water, and I'm going to add my potatoes. A quick word on these. I'm using russet potatoes today, but gold potatoes would work as well. I've also peeled them. You can or cannot, depending on your preference. I've cut them into about equal sized pieces, about 1.5 inches. I said about, they're not perfect. And I rinse them under cool water for about 30 to 60 seconds. That helps wash off some of the starch that could make the potatoes gluey when mashed. So I'm going to add these to my pot of water. And I want to salt this water, so I'm going to add just a generous pinch of salt. Just mix these up a little bit. Now I'm going to turn my heat almost all the way up to high, and I'm going to bring everything to a boil, stirring occasionally until the potatoes are nice and tender when pierced with a fork. So let's take a look at the potatoes. I think they're about ready. That's nice and tender, so I'm going to take this over to my sink and I'm going to drain it. Then after draining, I return my pot to the stovetop. Here are the potatoes I've drained, and I'm going to add them back into this pot, which is still warm. I'm going to let these sit for about another minute because it's going to steam and cook off any extra moisture that we don't want in our mashed potatoes. All right, now I'm going to add my flavoring, starting with 1/3 cup of unsalted butter. And you might be able to tell by how melty that was. This is nicely softened. It's better to use butter that's been softened rather than something straight out of the fridge. I'm going to add 1/2 cup of milk. I typically use whole milk for this. Then I'm going to add a 4th teaspoon of salt to start. We're going to taste test and add more as needed. An 1/8 teaspoon of ground black pepper. And then a 1/2 cup of freshly grated Parmesan cheese. We'll go ahead and use a potato masher to mash everything together. Now you never want to over mash your potatoes or overwork them, or they could end up gluey. So I'm going to do this just until they're mashed. Give everything a stir. I'm going to bring back our meat, and we'll just spread our potatoes evenly on top. You can see some of that stringy Parmesan cheese. Makes it so good. Spread these over the surface. And you can bake this as is, but to encourage a little bit of browning, I add some texture to the top by just raking a fork over the surface. So I'm going to bake this in the center rack of my 400-degree Fahrenheit preheated oven. It's going to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes. I like to cook it until the top is beginning to look a little bit brown. Now, just to protect against any possible spilling, I like to cook this on a cookie sheet or a baking sheet that I've lined with some parchment paper or aluminum foil. It just makes cleanup easier in case there's a spill. All right, when it's finished baking, it should be nice and bubbly around the edges. Hopefully yours didn't spill. Doesn't look like mine did. Now, if yours isn't browning on top and you really want that browning, you can turn on your broiler and broil it for just about 2 minutes. Just keep an eye on it. I have caught things on fire in my broiler before. Don't be like me. So I'm just gonna let this cool a little bit, and then we'll go ahead and we can dig right in. No, I'm gonna burn my mouth on this. Oh yeah. Get a little more meat in there. And that is how you make my favorite shepherd's pie. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's recipe, and if you try this one out, please leave me a comment and let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. I am definitely gonna burn my tongue on this. That's really good.